So that's in an email. I can go and read it again if anyone needs it.
I think that would be fine. Did you send that in an email?
Yes, I did this morning.
Okay. So that's a pretty long change, so I'm not going to try to do it by hand here. It has been recorded, and that's something else we need to double check. John Affelter is to take minutes tonight. And John, are you there? I don't see him. So John will need to take minutes from the recording tonight. And I am recording the meeting. Okay. So I would like a show of hands, please, for everyone who would like to accept the minutes with David Goebel's correction and addition. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Anyone opposed? That passes. So thank you very much. We will make sure that that addition gets put into the minutes. Okay. Now we have some guests with us this evening. We have Holly, would you like to speak? If you would, please unmute yourself. And if not, you can put your hand down. She may have just left that up from when she was voting. So we have John Taylor with us tonight. Thank you, John, for showing up. We really appreciate it. And we also have Wally Archuleta. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Wally, did I do okay? Thank you for joining us. And Bong Sto-Domingo is here this evening as well. Thank you, Bong, for joining us.
You also have Keith Brown from Rhodes joining Wally.
Oh, thank you, Keith. Yes, thank you very much for joining us.
You have a bunch of bureaucrats, as many bureaucrats as we could muster on a Thursday night.
Thank you, John. I know there's a lot going on too with King County tonight, so I do appreciate all of you showing up for little old Vashon Island. It's very good. Okay, and so next on the agenda, John, it's your turn. Please share with us what you have.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Wally in a second, but first, I'm going to say little old Vashon and Maury Island, because I myself,
yes,
I have been corrected before. It's 2 islands. And this is a follow-up from an issue that came up, I think, in the November V-MCC meeting, where one of the attendees was raising concerns about issues on a number of road segments here on Vashon. Wally is the head of our sort of traffic section. That's what I call it, Wally. I don't know what the actual formal title of it is, but that's good enough, I think. And they do a lot of investigations when we have road segments where people have identified safety issues. Keith has done a lot of work on Vashon. I asked them about these road segments, kind of what we knew, what we had done, what we might be planning to do. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Wally and Keith, and they can kind of take us through the issues that were raised and what we know and what we might be planning to do. With that, Wally, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
Great. Thanks, John. And thanks, Diane and folks, for having us tonight. It's always good to get out and listen to the communities and just hear what's going on. I come from a really small town, so this Vashon Island seems like a big city to me. There's 13 in my high school class. So anyway, but Diane, you sent forward some questions or some concerns about 3 areas. And I'm going to kind of go over those. And so feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything, or if you have additional questions or some different perspectives. And Keith Brown, I asked him to join us tonight because he's very familiar with the road system and issues on Vashon Island. He's the supervisor of the traffic operations and engineering section. So I'm not sure how many years he's been doing that, but well over a decade, maybe close to 20 years. So his perspective is I value it greatly. So Diane, I'm just kind of gonna go down the list of the concerns you mentioned, so, and give some feedback, and we can go from there. So the first one was a concern in the vicinity of Vashon Highway and 180th. So we're, in the area where the speed limit changes from 40 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. And folks are having a difficult time leaving 180th and turning onto Vashon Highway, especially it sounds like during periods of when the traffic, when the ferry traffic is going through. So we do understand the difficulty of turning on to a high volume roadway. Can be really frustrating, especially when the ferry traffic travels through. So we did some, we collected some speed data, and in that area on Vashon Highway, it's a principal arterial, and it carries about 7,800 vehicles per day. So, fair amount of traffic goes through there. So to highlight that speed limit change in the area, I believe it was last fall, but fairly recently, we added a rotational radar speed sign for northbound traffic at the 25 mile per hour sign. So I think a lot of you are familiar with those signs. When folks go through that area, if they're going over 25, the speed limit sign flashes, and after 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, it flashes slow down. And we found those are pretty effective, very effective at slowing down speeding. So in that area, it's a rotational speed sign. So it's there for a minimum of 2 weeks, and it gets switched to different areas around the island. And the reason we do the rotational is in many areas we find it's more effective. People can get used to something, seeing it all the time. So we take it away for a little while, bring it back, just to remind the folks out there. Because for the most part, the people that drive this area are the same ones that drive it on a regular basis. Granted, on weekends and other things, you get some new people in there, but it's good just to switch that around. That's what we found. And those signs, like I said, are rotated to increase their long-term effectiveness. So that's what I will say about that site. We continue to monitor these areas for speeds, and I'll get that down into that a little later when I answer an additional concern. The next area was Vashon Highway Southwest and Southwest Cedar First Road. And the issue on that, there's a concern with the sharp curve, people not familiar with it, and driving off the curve and off the roadway. We had traffic engineer visited the site, took measurements, took site distance measurements and so forth, and found that this curve could benefit from additional signage in both directions. So there are some, they're called chevron signs. It's the yellow sign with the black arrows kind of indicating which way to turn. On southbound sign, there were some signs, but it would benefit by adding additional signage. So just increasing the number of signs in that direction. And on the northbound, adding some additional signs also in that direction, just to highlight that, yeah, there's a curve ahead, make it visible. While there's some indications before, we did agree that those need to be beefed up, so we're going to be doing that. And we're also going to be adding 40 mile per hour advisory signs in both directions to remind traffic, hey, you need to slow down as you go around this corner. So, so again, thanks for the comments on that, and that's leading to some changes out there. So the last area that you mentioned was this road segment, or a segment of Vashon Highway Southwest, roughly from about 180th to Cemetery Road. So we had engineers go out there also. We took speed measurements. I think all of you are familiar with that. It's a fairly straight roadway. Good sight lines, shoulders are 8 to 10 feet paved shoulders. We also collected some accident data. So between 2018 and 2022, for 6 years, there were 16 collisions on that section of roadway. So it's about a mile stretch, if I didn't mention that earlier. So the majority of the collisions were in the southbound direction. And about 40% of the collisions turned out to be rear end collisions, where the sheriff's office noted inattention driving were the cause of those. So we did a speed count through there. Let's see, the posted speed limit's about 40 miles per hour. Again, about 7,800 vehicles per day through that area. The average speed was 30 miles per hour, and most people drove at or below 35 miles per hour. So the most people drove is about 85%. So 85% and below are going 35 miles per hour in that 40-mile-hour speed zone. So, but what we did find is that this section may be a candidate to lower the speed limit, likely to 35 miles per hour. So what we're going to do is we're assuming, well, we know you get more traffic when the weather gets better in the summer. So this spring, we're going to be taking additional speed data out there, see what the numbers are, and take another look. And part of changing the speed limit, if that is where this goes, or if that's a recommendation, is a public outreach process. So when we do something like that, it's codified that we need to do that. And it's also good practice. You know, if we're going to do that, do a change, is to have to request public input. One other thing I will mention about that, what we did find, the engineer did note, pedestrian traffic in that area. I think that was also noted by folks here. We are going to be adding pedestrian warning signs for southbound traffic in that area. So I see, looks like Amy Dreyer has her hand up with a question.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for this report. This is really interesting, and I am really pleased to hear that there's kind of a second form of redress within the county. My neighbors and I have been kind of helplessly filling out the form at the sheriff's office website for a couple of years now. We live on the Burton Strip, right as you come out of town, like 2,400 essentially. What is that? But anyway, so we regularly have folks going about, I would say 50 to 70 in the 25 zone here. And it's already a 25 zone. So I guess I would just love to register that with you. We have not had any relief from King County sheriffs. So I guess it'd be great to learn more about some sort of speed survey, or just find out what the possibilities might be here. It's a very narrow, there is actually no shoulder to the road. So yeah, we'd love to find out how and why we could get some kind of attention here, because we have not been able to get attention from the sheriff's office. So thank you so much for that.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for your comment. And yeah, you're right. The sheriff's office, they're the only folks with the authority, I think, obviously, to enforce their speed limits and speeds. So to your question, comment about the speeds in your area. So what we do is, when we get a complaint from the neighbors, is we'll take a look at it. Oftentimes we'll send an engineer out there to do take a look at the geometry, sight lines, shoulders, use, intersections, driveways. Oftentimes we'll gather speed data. So that's something we always consider as part of the investigation. So I'm pretty sure, Amy, I have your contact info, so we'll follow up with an email. Get the specific location and follow up with you on your concerns for that road segment.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.
Yes, question. Yes, come on up here so we can hear you. And I'll grab a chair.
Oh, it's okay. You may have mentioned it, and so I'm so sorry, but I did not hear. I noticed some 35-mile-per-hour signs on the north end, Burma, and just past Palouse. Went up recently, and they weren't there before. And so I have noticed, I do live on the north end, that ferry traffic is really used to that 50-mile-per-hour right away. And so one of the 35-mile-per-hour signs has a little orange flag, but the other one that is going southbound doesn't. And so it's actually not conducive to folks seeing that sign very quickly. Can you touch base on that a little bit?
Sure. And you know what I'm going to do on that one? I'm going to ask Keith to jump in also on that signage and that change, because he's probably a little more familiar with that and give you a little more current information.
Yeah, so we should have had orange flags on for both directions. It may have fallen off or something, but we'll definitely get that replaced. We'll get that done actually very quickly. I'll send in the work order tomorrow to get that put back up, because we need to draw attention to it. That's the point. Why when we make changes, we want to make sure people can see them, and it attracts the attention. So we'll definitely get that, get the orange flags back up on that. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
I just want to note for everyone that I put the number for the roads maintenance hotline in the chat and the email. And that is great if there's a tree down, but also if you have a traffic issue like this and you send it in to that roads maintenance email address, it'll get routed to the traffic group and they'll create a work order and they'll look into it. So I'd say this with I have a huge amount of respect for the sheriff's office. They do great work. This isn't really their bailiwick, it's ours. So it may just be that's why you were kind of not getting a response from them. They enforce traffic laws. They don't make recommendations about changing signage, speed limits, anything like that. That's fully within the purview of the roads division. So that is a great number to have. I'm really proud of this. We are a very, very thriftily funded roads division, but we have humans that answer that phone 24/7. They're working all night long in the middle of the night, and it's staffed by a person, not a voicemail. So if you call that number at 4 a.m, someone will answer. And if there's a tree down or a bridge out or whatever it might be, if you let them know, they will route it to somebody to respond to it, particularly if it's urgent. And if you're just bored and you feel like talking to someone, you can call them. They're often lonely in the middle of the night. I'm sure they would, if you have insomnia, they would love to hear from you. I'm kidding about that last week.
We have another question over here, if we may.
Hi, thanks, Wally, for joining again. Really appreciate all the work you're doing.
This is Debra Gussin.
That's Deborah, thanks. We, another group of neighbors had been communicating with you last year. This is around that same Cedarhurst curve. And in August 2nd, you sent us an email saying that they're going to put a flashing beacon at 140th to warn of that double curve that you're coming around. And it was supposed to happen in the fall. And I don't think it's been installed yet. So I don't know if it's still on the horizon, if that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's still planned. Keith, I don't know if you have an update on that.
What's that?
He's asking Keith.
Yeah, I don't have an update on it. That's all. Like one more thing to follow up on. I'm trying to see if I can find the work order.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
while we're on the call,
right.
Keith will search for that and see if he can find it and give you an update. But it's definitely something we can follow up, and hopefully even during the meeting, we'll find that info.
Great. Thank you very much.
And this is a double curve on Vashon Highway near Cedarhurst,
Yeah,
correct?
it's Cedarhurst to 140th, that sort of S curve there
On Cedarhurst?
on the highway.
On Vashon
Yeah.
Highway, yes,
Yeah.
okay, just confirming that.
Thank you.
All right,
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
yeah, anybody have any questions? Nobody has a question. Unmute yourself, please, thank you.
Thank you. I have a comment, not so much a question. I know one of the areas that was discussed at the last meeting and I think addressed today was Ferry Hill with traffic coming off the ferry. And as a daily motorcycle commuter for a lot of years, one of the issues with that traffic being so fast is nobody wants to get behind the bus. because the bus no longer, I think probably because of accidents, no longer pulls off the highway, allowing traffic to pass it. So if you're stuck behind that bus, you're stuck all the way into town with every stop that they make to, allow passengers to disembark. As motorcyclists, being behind a bus with a diesel engine is really toxic. And I think that plays a lot into the speeds that you see on the hill and the area where that clears out. People want to get up there and pass the bus down over the dotted line if they're stuck behind it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks.
Some of that.
I see Kathleen has a hand up.
Kathleen, you may be on mute.
Yeah, Kathleen, you unmuted, but we still can't hear you.
Yeah.
Kathleen, while you
Can
work
you
on,
hear me
oh,
now?
there,
Now we can, yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
yes?
Okay.
We can hear you.
I can't hear you, but if you can hear me, that's great. During that meeting, it was brought up about the blocks that are on the area for wheelchairs or walking people, pedestrians go up on Bank Road and up to Vashon Highway by Thriftway and that whole center. The blocks have been pushed in so wheelchairs cannot fit in that walking area from 97th up to Vashon Highway. And I don't know if that was addressed or if that's somewhere where like that complex is responsible for that, or is that a King County thing?
I apologize. When Diane and I debriefed after this meeting, I missed that one. So
Okay.
I don't think I have a good answer for you tonight, and unless Keith or Wally are familiar with it and know what that's about.
No, I'm not familiar with that, but it's definitely something that we do need to follow up on. In that area, yeah, it's hard for me to imagine where the wheelchair should be impeded like that. Within our right of way. If it's on private property, that's different. We don't control that. But it's definitely something we'll follow up on and get somebody out there to take a look at that.
So just to confirm, it's just along the parking lot frontage, correct? Between 97th and Vashon Highway?
Yeah,
On the
it's
north, on the north side?
Yes.
It's outside of the parking lot.
Outside.
Right. Along the
On the
road, but
south side.
along the frontage to the parking lot. Okay,
Right, correct.
thank you.
We'll take a look. And when I say we, I mean
Thank you.
Wally and Keith will probably end up taking a look. But I might if I'm out on the island, and I'm often out on the island. Melvin, you have a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Does the road department clean out long culverts? On Southwest Shawnee Road on the north side, there's a long culvert that I try to clean out, but I can't reach it all. And I think it's half full in the middle where I can't reach, and I wonder, does the county ever clean those out? Did you hear me?
If it's one of ours, we often do.
Well,
We'll make note of that.
it was probably put in when we developed our property. So I don't know if it's probably not yours, it's probably mine, but
Yeah, if it's yours, if it's outside of the road right away, it's not ours.
no,
and-
I think it's in the right of way, but
So maybe I can help if it's part of the roadway ditch system, like in front of your property, leading to your driveway.
well, it's not by our house, our house is off of Old Mill Road, but our property also is adjacent to Southwest Shawnee.
Okay, I
And
think
it's
that's
on
something-
Southwest Shawnee where this is a problem. I'm afraid it's gonna plug up and have a flood there.
Well, if it's ours, we'll I mean, roads will clean it out. So
There's
John,
a
what about-
cone there. I called about 2 or 3 years ago to get it cleaned out and nobody ever came, so. So far it hasn't overflowed, but I'm sure I haven't cleaned it out for a long time because I can't reach it.
So I'm not sure what the best way is for you to give us your kind of exact location. I'd be happy to share my email address in the chat box. And if you're comfortable doing that, you can shoot me an email with the location and I can forward it toward maintenance crews.
I know the location, the
I know you
crossroads,
do, but-
what?
Oh, go ahead.
So Melvin,
Crossroads between Southwest Shawnee and Old Mill Road. If you go east on Shawnee, 3/10 of a mile, it's on the left side.
Is there an address associated with it?
Well, my address is on Old Mill Road.
I'm going to have to interrupt you guys. Could you please do this via email? We need to move on.
That'd be great. We'll
What's the
connect
email?
with you, Melvin.
Okay, all right, we,
May I ask, these guys are King County roads?
come up here and ask your question, please. Because they can't hear you from back there. So if you just sit here and ask your question, and we do need to move on, so please be
Okay,
brief.
I was here last time and John Taylor was on the set. And I showed him a piece of our road. This is 204th Street. Okay,
I remember.
yeah, the patchwork doesn't work. And is there any talk in the King County Council for getting a road maintenance budget here on Vashon so we can get our roads layered on a regular basis so we can have nice roads like we had 50 years ago?
We are in the legislature right now trying to get more taxing authority, which is what's going to be key to getting to a place where we can do a better job of maintaining the roads. In the absence of that, you can expect more of the same and worse.
Gee, thanks.
Well, okay, that's just fine, except I don't believe there's a shortage of money because I got a brochure from Joe McDermott within the last couple of months, and he outlines about $400 million in spending on a whole bunch of stuff that I don't need or want. And I don't understand where King County gets that kind of money in the first place.
We could go into a long public finance discussion here, but what I can tell you is that the funding for the roads fund is derived from the roads tax, and the roads tax has a 1% cap per year. That's how much it goes up every year. So it's about $100 million. Next year, we'll have $101 million. And our construction costs this year went up 20%. 20% because of construction inflation and general inflation. So do the math. Next year is going to be worse. The year after that is going to be worse still. And eventually we won't have a capital program at all. We'll only have a maintenance program, and then we'll begin dismantling the maintenance program.
Wow.
So that's what you have to look forward to as a resident of unincorporated King County, absent intervention by the legislature to lift that 1% cap. Or a regional approach to transportation where very wealthy communities like Seattle, Bellevue, Issaquah, Redmond, etc., share their road revenue, their transportation revenues with poor jurisdictions like unincorporated King County. But I wouldn't hold your breath for that, because when you talk to those cities, they'll tell you they're cash poor too when it comes to their roads infrastructure.
I don't believe Vashon Island is a poor community.
Might have to fund it ourselves. Okay, thank you very much. And your name again?
I'm Jeff Schnells.
Jeff,
you,
I
Jeff.
wish I had a better story for you. And
wish
honestly,
you-
I would have liked to have gotten your piece of asphalt. So I'm hoping someday I see you in person.
I'll take
Yeah.
it for.
Well,
I'll
okay, yeah.
see him before you
Yeah,
show
do
up.
that. Diane, I will see you before I see Jeff.
I'm sure I will see him before you do.
All right,
will
and I
sure
will, I promise you that will become a fixture in my office and hold down important papers. of some
Okay.
sort.
And maybe
Thank you.
it'll work at the state legislature too.
And I will share it with council members and the executive and state legislators when I get a chance. Because I feel
All
you,
right.
I'm not trying to dismiss your concerns. I'm very mindful of them. But I'm also very mindful of being real with people about the fiscal challenges we face as a roads division.
Okay.
Thank you.
David Vogel, you have a hand up, buddy.
Yes. Now, what you just said about having to lobby the legislature, is King County making an effort to do that?
Yeah, we are. We have a paid government relations person who works for the county executive and contract lobbyists, and their number one priority during this legislative session is getting that 1% cap on tax revenues lifted, because it's crippling our ability to provide road services, to provide sheriff services, and a lot of other general fund funded services. A lot of the things that the last speaker alluded to are things that are funded by a host of levies that have been passed. So your parks levy, homelessness levies, school levies. There are a whole bunch of different levies that people have voted for that generate tax revenues that can only go to those purposes. They don't go to general government purposes, and they don't go to roads.
Can we do a roads levy?
You could, and we have tried to do it in the past, and they've been voted down. We tried to do one before I ever became the director of this department, about maybe 8 or 9 years ago. That was a transit and roads levy, and it just got destroyed at the polls because the people who support transit didn't want to pay for roads, and the people who wanted roads didn't want to pay for transit.
I'm going to have to interrupt now because we're way over time for this discussion, and we
Totally.
have so much to cover tonight. Thank you so much. It's very valuable. We can continue next month too.
I'm happy to come anytime. It's always a pleasure to see all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all and the whole team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank Wally. Keith, thanks so much, you guys. And I think we're going to say adieu to you all and head on our way, if that's okay.
That's fine. That's fine. We're going to cover some other things, but you won't need to be here for that. We won't
All right.
grill you with questions about housing.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing up.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Next on the agenda, we have committee and board updates, and we're going to start with the brand new post office committee, and David Vogel has an update for us.
Hi, well, we met for the first time on February 7th at 7 p.m. And I would encourage anyone who is concerned about the post office situation to join the committee. We selected a chair who's going to be Jim Garrison. We determined the role of the committee, and the purpose is stated as follows. It is to study and recommend solutions to our island's postal delivery crisis and long-term needs. We discussed some of the issues confronting the UPS on Vashon and in the United States. We talked about the effects of the Amazon contract with USPS, and we're going to try to obtain a copy of that contract to see how things can be changed in terms of how they're done on Vashon, because apparently there are other rural areas and other islands that get Amazon van service and get better postal service in general. We had Tom Bangasser offer his experience as the landlord to the USPS, because as we probably know by now, the facility for the USPS, especially now that Burton has closed, is too small and too old. And so we really do have an island need for a new and improved facility. And so Tom Bangasser has indicated that he would help look into that. And then we talked about reaching out to King 5 in Cairo and how we can exert pressure on Amazon to deal differently with the island and perhaps establish hubs on the island and also send vans out. So that was our first meeting. Our next meeting is going to be March 14th at 7 p.m. and I will be hosting the Zoom. So if you would like to be included, please do send an email to me or to Diane, and we'll get you included. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Okay, it's really wonderful to have this committee going and looking at some of these things. Next, we have the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee. Kevin, would you like to come and share some update?
Yes, thank you, Diane. Thanks, members of the committee. Thank you for reading the land acknowledgement. I appreciate the board taking action to move forward with that. And of course, want to let Jessica, Anna Carr, and James Ricard know we appreciate the work they have done to get the community together, receive input, and produce those acknowledgement statements. The next step for the Equity, Social Justice, Inclusion Committee is to have the board approve our outreach initiative. This is where we will be talking with organizational leaders and individuals in the community about their experience with equity, social justice, and inclusion. We'd like to have meaningful conversations with individuals about barriers that they may face, so we can hopefully find opportunities for the committee, for the community council to be able to be as effective as possible to address some of those barriers and improve our life here on Vashon and Maury Islands. I'm happy to ask any questions if people have them. Our next meeting is March 1st. We meet the first and third Wednesday of every month. You can get in touch with Diane if you'd like to be a member of our committee. We've had 2 or 3 people join us in the last few weeks, so really appreciate folks coming on board.
And there's also information on joining the committee on our website.
Perfect. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Okay, next we have the Town Plan Committee possibility. And this, we just want to talk about this as a group tonight. And this is because in the past, when we've had a community council, we were very much, the council was very much involved in the town plan. But we haven't had a community council in a few years, but we have a plan. We have the sub-area plan. And there isn't anyone in the community tasked with the job of reviewing that plan and checking to see the things that the community said they were going to do. Who's doing that? And I think it's important that we do have a group to look at the plan for our community and do 2 things. Make sure King County's doing what they said they were going to do in the plan, and make sure if the community said they wanted certain things, let's take a look at that and see what the community can do with that plan and make those things happen. Otherwise, it's unlikely that they will happen. Just like with any other strategic plan, if you just put it on the shelf, dust it off every 10 years. But how to do this is a question. In the last time, the first time the sub-area plan was created, King County sent out a survey asking for people in the community to apply to be on the planning committee. And a number of people applied, and we have that survey, and John Taylor said we can use that anytime. The survey is still in existence. The questions are still there. So we can set up our own survey just like that. It was very well done. The difference was back then, King County chose the people who would be on the plan, who would be in the committee. And they were just announced. My opinion would be that it would make more sense for the community to choose who will be on the planning committee for the community. So that's just the idea right now. And I'd like people to think about this, and I'd like people to share if you have any thoughts about this right now or opinions. Let's just talk about it for a little bit. We don't have to do it immediately, but we do definitely need to do something like this. David.
Yes, and I do think that the sooner the better. We had a King County Town Hall forum where I mentioned this idea to the planners, and what they said is, well, we welcome Vashon's input. And it's not our input that we want, it's our involvement. Because the community council has, over like a 50-year period, been in charge of the planning for this community and has done a very good job. Now, being in charge, we've initiated, we have chosen a lot of the planning aspects for the town plan, for the island-wide plan, and we've gotten the entire community involved in these plans. We have done a whole lot more than just providing input to King County. Now, the 2024 plan update is our opportunity to not change everything, but to make minor tweaks to the town plan that are essential, and that they have indicated that the county is going to be looking at the P suffix conditions in the town plan, and also the affordable housing overlay, which has been ineffective. And King County is now saying, well, this is what we want to do with the overlay, without any input from Vashon. And we have very different ideas about how it should be addressed. So the best way for King County to do these things is for the island to initiate the process and then bring it to King County, as we have done in the past. And when we have our own town plan committee and we, reach out to the community, and then we say, King County, we want to get you involved now that we've started things, then they will deal with us a whole lot differently than if they tell us what to do. And so I think it's best to start the town plan committee on our own, to get it going, and to show them that we're serious about this process, and we will be. So I think that these, in particular, there's a section at K2, the building K2 has an opportunity to provide 85 new affordable housing units for the community. And that is critical. But with the present zoning that we have, it's zoned industrial, those 85 units could not be put in there. So that zoning needs to be changed. And this is exactly the kind of thing that the town plan committee could address. Okay. So
Thank you.
my idea is get it started now.
Get it started as soon as possible. Anyone else like to have a thought on this? Okay, Nell approves it. Thank you. All right. So if we are to get started on it, we would need some help in getting the survey out and getting responses in. And so the next step would be sharing the survey with people and making sure that's okay, and going from there. So I can do that. I can send that survey out to the members, to the whole, everybody on the mailing list. Okay, now we have new board members that the board has vetted and approved, and we'd like to introduce them and get a confirmation vote from members on our new board members. And I would like to begin with and have them introduce themselves. So first we have Debra Gussin. And Debra, would you come on up? So everybody, in your email, you got background information on these board members, but here's one of them.
Hi, Debra Gussin. Nice to meet you all, those who I don't already know. Thanks.
And Debra, some people don't get our newsletter, but they're here anyway. Could you just tell a little bit about yourself and what you hope to accomplish?
Sure. I've been sitting in on the community council meetings since it restarted a few years ago. Really impressed with a lot of the passion and interest that folks bring to this. And it's just been a great way to get to really understand more of the issues and concerns that are going on. And I'm looking forward to helping in whatever way I can.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks.
Any questions for Debra, anybody? No, okay. Now we're going to go with John Staczek. John is on the Zoom meeting. So John, if you would please unmute yourself so we can And then if you would just please, just say a few words, please, so that we can all see you here. And you need to unmute yourself first, John. You can't unmute yourself. I'm sorry, we can't.
Type something into the chat as an introduction.
So John, for some reason, you can't unmute yourself, it looks like. But if you could try to find on the bottom left corner, you click the little microphone. And I can't unmute people. They stopped letting people do that on Zoom. Got embarrassing. So John, since we're having some technical issues with that, I'll just read something from your statement. So here, I'm going to pull that up, and we can work another time on some training for Zoom for you. Okay.
I've just unmuted. Can you all hear me?
Excellent. Yes,
All
we
right.
can.
That was just a guess. All right. I'm John Staczek. I moved to the island in 2006. I came here because my son and his family, his wife and soon-to-be baby back in 2006, were going to settle on Vashon because that's where they wanted to raise their daughter. Well, I came here in February of 2006. My wife joined me about 4 months later. From Phoenix, where we had been living for a number of years. And I thought I need to get involved in civic activities. And so I started with the West Side Water Association. And I volunteered and I didn't get anywhere. But somebody remembered the second year of the meetings and they said, we need somebody. And I got elected to that board immediately. So it was kismet. But one of my other responsibilities since then has been in 2011 when we opened the Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union. I became a member of the board, and in 2016 I became the chairman of the board, and I have been the chairman since. And it's been a wonderful introduction for me to a whole different world of managing finance. And we have a new CEO and president, and that's Shannon Ellisbrock. She was formerly the operations manager. And Shannon has turned out in the last year to be wonderful in this position. So we have lots of places to go. One of the places we're going to go is to Orcas Island, to the San Juans. And we're working on opening the San Juan office sometime by the end of the year. I have also been with Island Green Tech on the island. I've been a member of Rotary International. I've been with the Burn Design Group. I've been with Vashon Be Prepared and the Vashon Health Watch. So I've gotten my nose wet in a lot of places. In fact, I got my nose really, really wet with the former incarnation of the Vashon-Maury Community Council in the V-MCC with Gene Bosch, and then later when that all ended with Tim Johnson, we know where we are as a result of all that. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm delighted to be involved in a number of these initiatives. And I suggested to Diane several weeks ago that one of my interests is to become the corresponding secretary.
Corresponding secretary, right.
Yeah. I'm a good writer, and I'm an even better editor. And I like to do those kinds of things because I'm trained as a linguist to begin with. And I've been in the academy, I've been in universities all my life. So as I say, I'm happy to be here, and it's nice to meet you all. It'll take me a while to get familiar with all the faces and names, but I'll do that because I'm pretty good at remembering faces and names. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. It will be wonderful to have all of your experience on the
All
board.
right. Thank you.
Okay. And now Kim Roeser. Let me just change this view here to the gallery. Okay.
Hi, my name's Kim Roeser. I know many of you, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, which is exciting. My partner Rosie and I moved to the island 5 years ago, but we hit the ground running. I was the farmer's market manager for 2 years during COVID. So yay, thank you all for coming to the market while we had it closed and kind of wild there. I was really lucky to sit on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I filled in for Hetty for her last year. I am the current office manager for Camp Sealth, and yes, I'm saying that correctly. So if you said self all these years, it is pronounced Sealth. And that's awesome. I'm year-round down there, so it's been really fun to be a part of the community over there in Frog Holler. And lots of other random situations wherever I can get involved. I think what really brought me to the community council is I find that I stay in my pocket or neighborhood of the island, and I want to know what's happening island-wide. And so this is a really great opportunity to do that. So I appreciate being here and appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Kim. Okay, so we have this wonderful 3 additions to our board, and now it is time for people to vote if you approve. So let me just see. I'll tell you, we'll just raise hands. All those in favor of endorsing what the board has selected for board members, please raise your hand. Thank you. I'm going to raise my hand too. Okay. Very good. Thank you. You may put your hands down, and is anyone opposed to this to this endorsement? Oh, I'm quiet, yes, I see that. All right. Unanimously, it passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. It'd be great to have you on the board. And now, new business. So announcements of some changes to our zoning came out after our January meeting. So we didn't get a chance to talk about it at the January meeting. So we tonight are going to discuss the proposed change related to housing and decide what, if anything, we wish to say as a community council to the King County unincorporated area councils, of which we are a member. So I'm going to introduce this concept to you first. Our community council is part of a greater team that covers nearly every part of the King County rural area. So here are the other councils that are part of this group. The Enumclaw Plateau Community Association, Friends of Sammamish Valley, Four Creeks Unincorporated Area Council, Greater Maple Valley Unincorporated Area Council, Green River Coalition, Green Valley Lake Holm Association, Hollywood Hill Association, Sue's Creek Area Response, and the Upper Bear Creek Unincorporated Area Council. So this group pulls together opinions from the unincorporated areas and sends them to King County. So they are pulling together comments from all of these unincorporated councils about this latest proposed change. And they want our opinion on what we think of the issues in here that affect Vashon. So this is an opportunity for us to decide what we want to do about that. This is the kind of thing that I can't speak for the community council to the unincorporated area councils, neither can the board. It has to be something that comes from the members. And that's why we have to do this at a membership meeting. And we don't have the luxury of waiting a month. And so what we need to do is, because this feedback has to go tomorrow. We can't wait another month. And King County in general needs feedback on this by the 24th of February. We can't wait till next month. But in order for us to do this as an emergency motion, we need to have the approval of the members to do this. So I would like a show of hands of the members who would approve. And first, I'd like to actually, someone else would please make the motion to approve an emergency vote.
I would, given the timeline and the fact that we can't wait until next month, I would ask to address this on an emergency basis.
So Ben has made the motion to address it. I would like a second for his motion, please. So
Second.
David Vogel has seconded the motion. Okay, all those in favor of allowing an emergency motion to take place at tonight's meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? So that has passed. So very good. Thank you so much for this. So we can now discuss this. Basically, so I was wondering if I could have Morgan, are you with us? Morgan Brown? You still here with us? Oh, you are. Morgan, would you mind sharing your opinion on what this is called for?
It's tough. I know you've spent a bunch of time on it, Diane, and I've lost several days to try to digest the code on this. It's complex, kind of wonky stuff. But in general, I mean, what they're proposing is replacing two existing ordinance that we have with a new one. And the question is what exactly are the changes in it? And it's not real clear because they're pretty sort of detailed, but it has to do with housing, and it primarily just really affects the town of Vashon. And so, I mean, I guess I would say I don't think, when I've looked at all of the detail, that it's really a big significant changes. The two possible exceptions to that are really, one is that for affordable housing right now, there are some incentives, and if you do them, you just have to do them, and then you get some benefit from it. And now there is something that's quite common in a lot of areas where they allow an in lieu fee. In other words, you can, somebody, if they're building a project and they want to take advantage of the incentives to get more houses there, they can do that, but then they don't actually have to do the houses if they just pay a certain amount of money for it, and that is then done somewhere else. Now, this code does say that you can put a preference for that money to be used within your sub area, but only up to 40% of that money can actually stay here. But Diane, when you and I asked them in the town hall, they actually said for the unique situations in Vashon, all of that in lieu fee would remain on the island. So, that assuaged, I guess, some of my concerns in that regard. The other one doesn't really have to do with replacing anything. It's a big one. It's really something where they're saying all of the single family zoning within the town of Vashon would then be rezoned to be able to support duplexes, triplexes, and quads on it. And that's consistent with code that's being pushed at the state level and has actually been done in Oregon and California beforehand. But that's a separate sort of issue to replacing something that we have. Otherwise, from my perspective, once I'd gotten into the details, they look pretty similar. There's some differences, but basically it's taking one way of trying to incentivize affordable housing, which didn't work in their view because people hadn't done it yet, with something that's been tweaked and is now sort of countywide. So that's in general my take on it.
Thank you. David, I have a take on it as well, but I'd like to hear what David has to say. David?
Sure. One of my issues with it is that they say if it's not economically feasible, that these developers can replace affordable housing with market housing. And that defeats the whole purpose of, the affordable housing overlay if this is turned into market housing. And the another thing that I think is problematic is that approach, saying if it's not economically feasible, we'll allow this, has only in the past been applied where people are being upzoned or downzoned, and there is an action done by the county or the municipality to affect the zoning. And then if that prevents economically feasible actions, they will allow certain things. But here, it's not as if there's been an action by the county that is depriving the property owners of economic feasibility. This is the way it already exists. And so they are only benefiting if you allow market housing instead of affordable housing. So that's not the way it's been traditionally done over the years. And so I think this is too beneficial to developers of market rate housing.
Thank you, David.
I could respond to some of that if you want, or we can just leave it for later.
I'd like to say something first and then you could respond, please. So I also have done a lot of reading on this, and I am concerned that basically King County is promoting market rate housing, hoping that things will trickle down and affordable housing will result, because this is a voluntary thing. It's not required that development does have any component of affordable housing in it. It is voluntary. Developers can develop 100% market rate housing on the island according to the new proposed plan. And we don't necessarily need market rate housing. Market rate housing is whatever the market will bear. And we know how expensive what the market will bear on this island now. We're seeing it. What we don't have is the affordable housing. And even if developers take advantage of the perks to include some percentage of affordable units in their development, let's say 25% they even go for. That means that in order for us to get 100 affordable housing units, we would have to have 300 market rate units. Now, right now, at this point in time, we have enough water to do more housing. Water District 19 has said so. But if you start putting out the kind of numbers of market rate housing in order to get affordable housing, we will soon be back out of water, and then we will be even worse than where we are now, because now we won't even have an opportunity to get market rate housing. We won't have the water for it. That's my opinion. My personal opinion based on what I've read, and prove me wrong, please, Morgan. But first, Kathleen would like to say something, and then so just wait one more time. Kathleen, please.
Yes, Diane, I was going to mention our Water District 19 on how many we could get in the next few years for any housing. And I would reiterate again your point that it would first go to the market and there would be nothing left for the low income housing that we so desperately need on Vashon. It isn't that the incentive is not going to work for us here on the island. And I worry that the other unincorporated districts will accept it, and we don't have a voice in, and our voice isn't powerful enough of our needs to do anything about it, to stop it. That's all.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, Morgan. Prove me wrong.
Well, Diane, I'm not out to prove you wrong. You have very valid concerns, and everybody's concerns should be respected in that regard. And I'm actually a big supporter of social housing, of public housing. And I think we need more of it. No question about it. I also do think that there isn't the money to solve the problem with that. And you have to do a mix of both. All things are required to incentivize market rate development and also to get as much public housing as you can. So a couple of things I just wanted to address. So one thing I think a lot of people don't realize, because they know about the special overlay district, which if you want to take advantage of it, the only option is do 100% affordable housing. And so sort of feel like, you know, we have this protection, but that doesn't mandate that anybody who already owns property has to put in any affordable housing. They can do what they're zoned for. It's just that if they do that, they have an incentive to go from, in the case of 8 units an acre or 12 units an acre, they can go up to 18 units an acre if they take care of that. But it has to be 100% affordable housing. And nobody has used that. Vashon Household might in the future, but nobody's used it. And that's what King County is complaining against. What a lot of people I don't think realize is there is already in place an incentive right now for anybody who owns property and wants to build housing to get some density bonuses if they do affordable housing. It's in the residential density incentive that's countywide. And it's you know, it's got some incentives in there. It's voluntary. And it's pretty similar to what this new proposal is. It's done a little bit different. It's kind of like tweaking. It's not wholesale different. So it is possible now in all of the residential density incentives from 4, actually, I think from 1 up to the, what's the max we have in town, 12, to basically be able to get 50% more units. And most of that you would be able to get out of making a certain percentage affordable housing. So it's very similar to what it's replacing basically in that. So it already exists. So that's not different. So when you go and talk about it, there's no mandate for it. You know, you and I have discussed it. I think it would be good to have a mandate that said required some amount of anybody who was building housing to make a certain amount of that. That's a difficult haul. Cities like Seattle have done it. Other places have done it. Generally, it's in the 10 to 20% amount, and they can then pass a law that mandates that they do it. This isn't trying to do that. This is a voluntary program, okay? I mean, just so that you understand that. If you want to lobby the county to do that in unincorporated, that's another issue, but there's no mandate for doing that. These are all voluntary things, and I don't think they probably could pass a mandate on unincorporated, but we can lobby for that. So I just want to get those sort of issues. And the water I want to touch on a bit. I mean, as you know, I'm the incoming chair of the Groundwater Protection Committee, and we really have this issue to go over a bunch, but I and a bunch of the other members who are going to effectively be on a committee for this because of this housing issue. There's been a consensus sort of among the island that we really have an aquifer that's going down or can't support housing, and spent a lot of time in the studies. There really is no scientific evidence to show that that's the case, or even arguably, and this is kind of my opinion and some of the opinions of the people who are better experts than me on the committee, we aren't necessarily even in a position to be able to draw down the aquifer. We don't have the type of agricultural uses that could probably do that. So when that is brought up as a housing issue and say we can't do that, I would call that out and say that's a canard. That's not true. Now, Water District 19 has an issue with being able to provide enough water, but that's an infrastructure issue. That's whether they have enough wells or enough pipes to do it. So when it's thrown out as saying we don't have enough water on the island, like can happen on islands like the San Juan Islands, I'm going to say right now, there is not scientific evidence to support that. And I would request that that's not stated like that, because I don't think that you can find the scientific evidence to support it. It is a very valid issue with infrastructure with Water District 19 and how much people are willing to pay for that infrastructure. But please don't put it out there unless you can bring up the scientific evidence that suggests that we are in danger of drawing down the water if we provide the housing we need. So those are
even 400 units.
Yes, Diane.
Even 400 units.
Yeah,
is no problem in your opinion.
Yeah, in fact, housing is really not one of the bigger issues. In fact, housing in town tends to be one of the most effective sort of uses of it. Most usages of people's water in residences is watering their lawns. And most actually in most communities is their agriculture. And then plus with all the green practices that we have now and more efficient things, that's really kind of a misconception. how much housing is actually dependent on that water and drives the drawing of it down. It's agriculture and it's lawns. And that really doesn't happen so much in towns, and it doesn't happen with multifamily housing really at all.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ben has a question or comment?
Sure.
I don't know if you can.
I'm just musing on, I don't know what problem this is trying to accomplish. I see that the county is billing this as a pro-equity program. It's designed to spur more affordable housing through boosting development. It's obviously ironic that you would try to spur affordable housing by getting rid of mandatory affordable housing and allowing developers to essentially effectively pay their way through.
No, there is no mandatory housing now, nor is there any proposed.
Okay, so if there isn't, and I think you had kind of said a second ago, then this is very similar to the current system, then why are we simply just trying to boost more construction on the island? Like, I think most folks move to Vashon because of the nature, the rural nature of the island. And so who's asking for more development here on the island if it doesn't include affordable housing by mandatorily?
This isn't designed, I think, in any way to sort of boost development. I think what it is this is happening sort of everywhere. It's trying to find ways of incentivizing builders to do housing, to do affordable housing, and to do that in the way that's pretty much been done, you know, everywhere. I personally would be in favor of mandating it. I think that would be a good thing. We could lobby for that. But generally, the most any communities have gotten when they mandate it is 10 or 20%. It's a hard thing to get passed. It's a hard thing to get everybody to vote on and agree to. But this is not having to do with mandating. It's just having to do with incentivizing people to provide some affordable housing in theirs. And it's pretty similar to the old way of stuff. I think mostly all this is some upkeep of updating stuff, which they're required to do on a regular basis with the comp plan. And the P suffix conditions were kind of a funky way of adding sort of code here and there. And they're removing those and sort of putting into general code as part of the update. And also then just trying to make the affordable housing thing, well, tweak it and make it a little bit better so that it's used more. It's not done much yet.
I don't agree.
Okay. Yeah. Amy?
Hey, yeah. So I've been reading a lot about this, and I'm writing something up for the Beachcomber, hopefully next week. It's really technical, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it next week, but in reading the proposal and also in getting a lot of responses, I wrote some pretty detailed questions to the county about asking for further detail on their responses. And I think some of their responses brought up even more questions, but just sort of as a community council, I want to kind of throw my hat in for Dave's plan to be proactive and say, this is what we want / need. I feel like we're getting in a place in the argument with sort of a false dilemma between accepting the status quo and accepting what seems kind of a half thought out plan in some ways by the county. Right. And, you know, there are many questions around, you know, I asked them directly, what will the percentages of fee in lieu of be, right? Like how much, et cetera, et cetera. They don't seem to have an answer for that. I think there are some really important questions down in the weeds of policy that the county is not ready to answer. And I want to be wary of the community being sort of backed into this false dilemma from the county and instead moving to a proactive position, you know, kind of more like Dave's advocating, where we take the time to look and see what really solves the problems on Vashon. And, you know, to me, I would say that the feedback to the county is stop, just stop. We don't need to be part of this like artificial timeline that you're creating for the 2024 plan to like jam through bad policy because you have a July deadline, right? That's just bad policy making. So I just kind of wanted to as I'm hearing the discussion, right, like we are accepting this sort of off the back foot position by the county, when I feel like our position should be right with like a thoughtful plan that we come back and say, here is good policy that we would like to lobby for.
Yes, so we have some options in what we can say to the unincorporated King County group that we have to report back to. We could say we're okay with the proposed plan, and I doubt that that would pass, actually. We could say we're going to withhold comment for now, stay tuned in effect. Or we could say we reject the plan to make it easier to have market rate housing on Vashon. And we want to see King County propose other ways to increase affordable housing in our community. What do you guys think?
Diane, I have a question. Where in the new code?
Excuse me, Kevin has a
Sorry.
question first,
Sorry.
so come on over here, Kevin.
And it's actually a question for you, Morgan. I know you made the statement that we do not have evidence that we could, I think your words were, draw down the aquifer. I'm not exactly sure what we mean by that. Do we have evidence that we won't draw down the aquifer?
Yeah, and that's a good question. There's no absolutes in this, and I think you have to be good stewards of the water. And I'm not advocating, wild abandon or anything. Where for me, kind of the aha moment came when one of the other members of the groundwater committee, who's a professor on hydrology at the University of Washington, pretty much pointed out what the formula is for how much rainwater hits the ground, how much runs off, how much goes into the sound, how much, goes down into the aquifer. And then the new studies and the better understanding we have now about how much we actually can take out with houses and residences and farms. And that number just doesn't suggest, unless something really changed on the island, like all of a sudden, all of the island was for growing, alfalfa or something really, really water intensive, that we could really drop the aquifer. Now, no guarantees. There's no such, such thing generally in science. This isn't something you can necessarily know, but something like a water moratorium where you're limiting the amount of housing, and I've seen it in other areas, is a very, very heavy-handed tool. It's very difficult to do. You expose yourself to incredible liabilities for takings and other things like that when you do that. And you need to have good science that shows that you have that threat, and it happens. I've seen it happen in other areas in the West, and it's definitely the case up on the San Juan Islands. And so it's reasonable to be concerned about that here. But there isn't, from the science that I've looked at, reading the reports fairly carefully, and we've had lots of reports on this, there isn't suggestion in there that's really potential right now. At least that's my interpretation of the science as I've read it. I don't know if that answers exactly your question, but
I would just hold that if there is no evidence, that we not draw conclusions one way or the other. If there's some rules of evidence types I know in the audience who are lawyers, and if you look at the world through rules of evidence, you see it from a different perspective. So I just wanted to make folks aware that that is another way of the problem. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so I would like
Diane,
to.
I did want to make one quick comment on you stated that this was incentivizing market rate housing. I don't see anything in the code that changes that or whatever. I mean, anybody who owns property is allowed to do housing as it's zoned, and I don't necessarily see that there's any change to incentivize market rate housing in any of this. So I wanted to ask if you had a specific one that you would mention to me.
Well, to me, if we're going to eliminate the special district overlay, which requires affordable housing, correct? The
Yes,
special
but
district overlay,
but
and we're replacing it with something that is voluntary. That to me is a difference from requiring affordable housing to, if you want to, you can, but you don't have to.
No, the special district overlay is also voluntary. Nobody has to use it. You only use it if you want to leap from 8 units an acre, 12 units an acre up to 18. So it's entirely voluntary in the same sort of way. The only
Okay.
difference is the only way you could use it is if you were 100% affordable housing, which is probably one reason why it's not being done. There's very few developers that specialize in doing 100% affordable housing. And now the new one is what's used more commonly elsewhere, is there's a scale. If you do a certain amount, you get a bigger reward. If you do more, you do more. It still has the 100% option. In fact, it's even better in some ways than the existing one, because it gives you, I think, 200% density bonus if you do 100% affordable housing. And if you do just some scale of it, the highest you can get is 150%. So that's actually arguably potentially better. They're all optional, Diane. There is nothing now that made it mandatory that's being taken away.
Okay, thank you for that. Kathleen? You'll need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah. My question was, I thought you said that King County has a mandate of affordable housing, but yet
No.
it's not being offered as an option for the unincorporated. Am I correct in what I thought you said earlier?
No, Seattle does, and some incorporated big cities have made a certain amount every time a developer does something. Usually it's in the 10 to 20% range. Seattle has this, but they also have an in lieu fee, and every single developer, I think, takes the in lieu fee. They just put it into a pot and use that to build affordable housing elsewhere. Unincorporated King County doesn't have anything like that. And it probably would be hard for them to pass it. You have to get the county council, and that's a very controversial thing to get done. I'd say the likelihood is pretty low. We could ask for it, we can lobby for it. That might help, but there is nothing mandatory in unincorporated King County.
Go ahead. Sorry. Thank you.
We need to move on. I think based on what I'm hearing, I think we should say to the other unincorporated counties, I would entertain a motion to this, that we aren't ready, that we're going to withhold comment right now until we can work this through more and think about it. Unless someone else wants to have a stronger motion, I would certainly entertain anyone speaking their mind on this, and we can vote on it. Anybody?
Just, can I just ask for the record, does the county needs an answer by the end of this month?
The unincorporated King County groups that we're part of need an answer tomorrow. And King County is closing down their individual feedback on the 24th of the month. But there will be another opportunity later this year to revisit this. This isn't it. So by then we will have more time. David, yes, okay.
Yes, I would say that instead of saying withholding comment, I would say we are withholding support for this proposal until we have further studied it in the community through our town plan committee.
Okay, so the motion you would like to make would be we are withholding support for this proposed change until we have further studied the issue through our Vashon Town Plan Committee.
Yes.
You like that?
That's a good phrasing of it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to.
Asking for seconds, I would second, but I'm not sure if there are other motions.
I just want to read it first. So this would be David's motion. We are withholding support for this proposal until we have further studied the issue through our Vashon Town Plan Committee. Is that right, David?
Correct.
Okay, that would be his motion. You want to second that one, Ben?
I would second that.
Okay.
Is it an issue or a policy that we're going to be studying? Is it an issue or is it a policy?
It's a proposal. It's they're asking us to support an ordinance.
So you have the word issue in the thing.
Oh,
So,
okay, then issue's
so
not.
the issue,
yeah.
the issue is affordable housing.
Right. No, the county proposal.
So withholding support for the county's proposal
Correct.
until we have further studied the issue of affordable housing through our Vashon Town Plan Committee. If we add the words, the issue of affordable housing, would
Just
that,
to clarify what it is that you want to study.
Very good.
Piece that I caused.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
very
the addition, for the friendly amendment. I accept it.
very good, very good. Democracy at work. Okay. Very good. All right, then.
There does appear to be a.
Oh, yes, Linda, it says Linda Peterson, but you don't look much like Linda, so please speak. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Linda Peterson, I'm Linda Fox. Is there another Linda?
There's another person who, with a beard
quite
that
Linda.
that did have was waving his hand.
Okay.
And so it looked like we needed to. Could you unmute yourself, please? There we go.
Come over here.
Ask to
Right.
unmute.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm muted now.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
David, would you be opposed to including some words in your amendment about until King County has further developed and fleshed out the.
I would not accept that because we want to start taking the initiative and not just being told what King County wants. And there's a difference.
Right, I agree.
So I think we should vote on this one, and we can, if we don't like it, we can vote it down and try again. But
Sure.
I would like to have a show of hands, please, of all those who support David's motion as amended. And I'll just read it quickly one more time. We are withholding support for this proposal until we have further studied the issue of affordable housing through our Vashon Town Plan Committee. Okay.
No.
14 yeses online.
Very good. All those opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much, everybody. I know what to say now to the unincorporated area councils, and I'll go ahead and, copy the planners in King County on that too. I really appreciate this. This is how it can work. It takes time. It's messy, but I want the community to make these decisions as much as possible. Okay. Old business, progress on V-MCC dissolution, David.
Well, the county put a moratorium on dissolutions in 2022, which I just found out. They have an announcement on their website. Apparently they are going to restart it, but they haven't gotten to ours yet.
Okay, so that was the state has put a moratorium on.
Excuse me, the state. Yes, the state.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I was wondering what the heck is going on. We did everything right.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It's not our fault. Okay.
All right. And we also have under old business, the passenger ferry resolution. Robert Gibbs, are you here with us tonight and can speak to this?
He has been logging in a few times since he was still there.
I can speak to it since I've been involved with this as well. Since he's not here, I'll just go ahead. So there was a resolution that was passed to support the using King and Kitsap County passenger only boats to supplement the spotty Washington State Ferry midday schedule while we wait for additional Washington State Ferry boats. So Joe McDermott and John Taylor and a staff person and Robert and I met and talked about this. And because of the really low, significantly reduced ferry usage from Vashon with COVID. They determined, and I must agree, that Metro wouldn't go for increasing the ferry schedule. And in addition, Washington State Ferries is supposed to be much closer to putting back in the 3-boat ferry system. But as part of the discussion, we were wondering about whether the businesses on Vashon would benefit from a passenger-only ferry from Southworth to Vashon, because there's so many more people commuting to work on Vashon from Southworth. So there's going to be a question posed to members of the Chamber of Commerce about this, to see whether this is something of interest to employers on the island, because we have been hearing it's so hard. I mean, and look, look at what's going on at the post office, look at what's happened with the Vashon Community Care Center. Is there some way we can help employers have people come and work from Southworth? So that's where we're at right now with it. Robert, are you there? No, someone was talking. Okay, so that's an update on that, and we'll keep you posted. Now, there was a motion that was made and seconded at our last meeting regarding the Vashon-Maury Environment Climate Agenda. The motion was introduced by Kevin Jones. Kevin, would you please read your motion?
Yes, would you like me to read the motion first or an introductory statement?
An introductory statement is fine, because not everybody was here last month. It seemed like it, but it wasn't quite everybody.
Very good. Thank you. I'll start out with that and then go to the motion. With reports last month of California underwater, 9 dead in East Coast tornadoes and king tides flooding Vashon-Maury homes and roads, I think most of us are compelled to believe the scientists who say we're now in a climate crisis. While environmental policy has both nuance and complexity, now is not the time to take it slow. The research and policy investments already made by the organizations included in this motion help us move at the pace the climate crisis demands. My discussions with these 9 organizational leaders, who you will hear about in the motion, over the course of the last 4 months indicates a dedication and level-headed resolve to do the right thing for our environment and the climate. Some of their hoped-for outcomes are directly tied to existing legislation today. Some are still working with lawmakers to put legislation in place. And some of these groups are envisioning legislation to create a better future for us, our children, grandchildren, and the plants and animals which inhabit our planet. This motion is not about a specific piece of legislation or a specific budget proviso. This motion is about supporting the goals and aspirations of these Vashon-Maury organizations. Through this motion, we ask our legislators to achieve the legislative outcomes which these organizations seek. If you support these outcomes, believe the organizations are competent and well-intended, and have confidence that Senate Environment Committee Chair Joe Wynn, House Environment Committee Chair Beth Dolio of Climate Solutions, and House Majority Leader Joe Fitzgibbon will do the right thing, then you'll want to vote yes on this motion. Even if you support only most of these legislative outcomes, you may want to vote yes. This last situation, by the way, discusses any support to a piece of legislation which rarely delivers everything that we would like it to. Please consider the dedication, commitment, and good judgment of the Vashon-Maury Environment and Climate organizations who are now requesting our support to these legislative outcomes, which will support their missions, goals, and objectives. So now I'll go ahead and proceed with reading the motion. Vashon-Maury Islanders place a high priority on protecting the environment and addressing the climate crisis. The organizations listed below have identified near-term legislative outcomes which would support their goals and objectives. The Vashon-Maury Community Council requests our Washington State legislators approve legislation to achieve these outcomes. Number 1, assure producers are financially responsible for the life cycle of their products and comply with minimum recycled content criteria, supported by Zero Waste Vashon, Puget Soundkeeper Alliance, Alliance for Tampatika Conservation, and Vashon Makerspace. Number 2, reduce environmental damage from tire reefs, incentivize reduced plastic use, increase the number of marine pump outs, and increase the buffer zone between vessels and orca, supported by the Puget Soundkeeper Alliance. Create a state program within the Department of Ecology to establish and maintain an up-to-date baseline survey of all Puget Sound shorelines by utilizing new technology to capture and map detailed information via advanced aerial and 360-degree on-the-water imagery, primarily supported by Sound Action and supported by Puget Soundkeeper and Vashon-Maury Island Audubon. Number 4, fund outside science review of Department of Fish and Wildlife proposals and a department review to improve fish and wildlife protection, promoted by Washington Wildlife First and Puget Soundkeeper. Number 5, there's only 9 of these, by the way. Number 5, establish a Washington Rail Solutions Office and expand climate-friendly rail service, including rail transport of Eastern Washington agricultural products to increase the likelihood of lower Snake River Dam removal, primarily sponsored by Backbone Campaign, supported also by the Alliance for Tompotika Conservation and Puget Soundkeeper Alliance. Number 6, expand the capacity of community solar projects and assure that community solar owners receive full credit for all of the energy they generate, supported by Vashon Climate Action Group and Indivisible Vashon. Number 7, invest Climate Commitment Act funds equitably and strategically to transition communities to a clean economy, reduce greenhouse gas emissions through land use and transit planning, primarily supported by Vashon-Maury Island Audubon and also Puget Soundkeeper Alliance. Number 8, assure customers have the right to fix their own devices by expanding access to manufacturers' parts, tools, and information, primarily supported by Vashon Makerspace, but also Zero Waste Vashon and the Alliance for Tompotika Conservation. And finally, number 9, support state and federal policymakers to urgently fund, plan, and implement projects to replace the energy, transportation, and irrigation services currently provided by the lower Snake River dams. These are essential elements of a comprehensive plan to protect Snake River salmon and southern resident orcas from extinction through dam removal and river restoration. Save Our Wild Salmon and Puget Soundkeeper Alliance are supporting them. I assume we'll invite commentary from Tom.
Yes, so now we're going to have people speak in favor or speak against the motion, and we'll take turns doing that. So I would like it if someone would like to speak in favor of the motion first, please raise your hand. Anyone? Okay, Melvin, looks like you're in favor. Would you like to speak to this motion?
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of this motion, but I do have a question. And my question is, assuming that this motion passes, who will the community council send this information to? And should that be part of the motion?
I thank you for the question. The motion is directed to our state elected legislators. That would be Emily Alvarado, Joe Fitzgibbon, and Joe Wynn. And I would have already drafted a letter, which I believe will be for Diane's consideration as council president, to send the information to them that the council, if we pass the motion, she would notify them that the motion has been passed.
And it would be our corresponding secretary who would send it.
Oh, thank you for the correction.
Okay,
Wonderful.
anyone who'd like to speak and against it, against the motion? Anyone else would like to speak in favor of the motion or have any questions? Okay.
Linda Fox has her hand up.
She's doing a thumbs up. Aren't you, Linda? Yes, but you have a question. Kim, please come over here because they can't hear you.
This might be really far down the road, but it is a question for you. Like, this motion goes to pass, then how, I think, can you all hear me? Am I loud enough? No?
No,
Okay.
say that's the problem.
This motion, if it goes to pass, the question is then, does this fall back on the community as far as supporting these motions and taxes and things like that? I guess I'm just trying to understand what the next step would be and how these things actually come to pass of, you know, making it actually happen.
Thank you for that question. The motion is intentionally framed around goals and objectives that these 10 different environment climate groups on Vashon-Maury Island would like to see come to pass. And so they are currently working with the legislature to create legislation and budget requests that would actually achieve these outcomes. Some of them may achieve success this year. Some of them may achieve success after several years. But what we're doing here is saying that, yes, we believe that we support the goals and objectives of these environmental groups and climate supporting groups. The details of exactly how they build the watch that we'd like to buy is for them to determine. But thanks for the question.
Okay. One more call for questions or comments from anyone. All right, all those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Either any way you want to. Okay. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you all very much. No. Yeah. Right. We don't have any other members.
Then just one deal.
All right, so that's that. Good. All right, community updates. We are going to have an update on the propane gas issue from John Affelter, but he isn't at our meeting this evening, so we'll have to pass on that. And now we're at open discussion, and boy, did we make up time. This is fabulous. So we have open discussion. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up? We normally don't have time for this, so this is really good. What's on your mind? You want to go home, don't you? Oh, you are home. We want to go home. Okay. All right. Our next meeting. Oh, we do. Okay, David.
Yeah, I just want to say that next Wednesday is the START, which is the CTAC roundtable about noise issues is happening. So if anyone's interested in joining it, you have to register beforehand. Just david@vifs.org. Send me an email and I'll send you the link for that.
Would you please put that in the chat, please, your email?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have another question. Debbie.
Hi. Hey, I just want to mention that the Vashon Healthcare District is going to be reaching out to people in meetings and community, just, trying to talk to the community about what they want to see for healthcare on the island. So there was an op-ed in the Beachcomber week or so ago by Eric Prine and Wendy Noble and Tim Johnson. And so if you read that, that talks about a little bit. And well, I'm on the outreach committee, so hopefully I'll see some of you, and you can just let us know, being that CMAR has plans to do primary care, that leaves some space for other needs to be considered. So watch for further information about that.
Yes, and I don't see anything wrong since this is so important to the community. We couldn't put this request also in one of our emails to our mailing list. So we'll mention that as well. I know we've got people with questions up there. Okay, Linda. And then Marilee.
Is this the format for making suggestions for new things on the island, new programs?
Yeah, it's open, whatever you want.
Oh,
it's open discussion.
All right. So one of my passions is about the homeless, and developing some kind of programs that would help them transition from where they are to where they may want to be. And that's a big thing, I know. But one piece of it, well, two pieces. One piece that I am interested in is using the currently empty laundromat to fashion after a successful co-op program in Canada that will, it's a co-op, so that the wash and dry is $1 and all the soap is provided and free coffee and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting, and the whole island could probably use that, you know, if we could. Too bad they took their machines with them. I was peeking in the windows. Anyway, that's something that I would like to talk about with somebody.
So it is, would you, Linda, could you provide us with a phone number, your phone number or an email in the chat, and you could speak it out too, so that people could write it down maybe if they have.
Okay.
So if they want to get in touch with you, and we can also put this in our email to our mailing list as well.
Okay.
That you're interested, and you'd be interested in pulling this together if there's enough.
Yeah.
Interest. So we want to find out if there's other interested parties in this concept.
That's right. Okay. So Linda Fox, 206-963-1058.
Oh, very slowly, please. Oh, you're putting it in the chat.
I'm putting in the chat. Okay. And then my email is, what do you want?
Tell me the phone number again really slowly, just so everybody, because some people might be trying to write it down.
Of course. 206-963-1058.
Wonderful. And it's in the chat as well. Very good.
And the email, did you want that?
If it's a simple one.
Heartsong.
Okay.
@gmail.
Wonderful. Okay, and I'll also put something out in our newsletter, our mailing list.
Yes, and I can share websites. I can share websites and so forth with, you know, maybe we should put it in the email. I don't know. You want me to want me to craft something?
Yes, if you could give some thought to that we could send out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Marilee, your turn.
I have an announcement, if that's appropriate.
Yes, it certainly is.
The annual Vashon Seed Share is Sunday, February the 26th from 11 to 2 at Dig Deep. And this is a community opportunity to bring seeds if you have them to share, but you don't have to bring them. You can come and take seeds home. This is put on by a group of seed enthusiasts, and it's in memory of our dear friend Lotus, who was the person that started the seed share. Many of you here know Lotus. And it was her idea that we should make seeds available free to the community to encourage the growing of food and flowers. And we welcome all of you. It's a great event. And this year we invite people to bring gardening books that they don't need anymore, tools that they aren't using anymore, so that we can share our garden supplies with each other and encourage gardening. There'll be an article in the Beachcomber this Wednesday. There are some posters around town, but I really hope you all come. The big greenhouse at Dig Deep is warm, and we'll have soup and tea and lots of seeds to share.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Marilee.
You're welcome.
Morgan.
Yes, since we had such a lively discussion on the housing issues, I wanted to reiterate that any individual that has any concerns on it is welcome and asked to contribute by the 24th, not just the community council. And so I'm posting in the chat right now their statement. I just copied it and pasted it, and their link to where you can do that. You can also Google, get tons of information on it, or you could ask me. I can put my email in here at but they have a lot of information on it. It's not presented in the best way, but they are taking feedback at this, what they call a very early stage on it, through the 24th. So if you're concerned about it, we do have, another week or 10 days to actually think about it and give them feedback. I think the more they hear from Vashon, the better. So that's
okay. Thank you for that. Yes, the more feedback we give them, the better on what we're thinking and what our questions are. And Amy's questions that I have had an opportunity to see are very good too. All right. Okay, oh, Kim, come on up.
I just was hoping that we might be able to review any of the committees that currently don't have anyone in the community as a liaison. And if anyone might be interested,
We don't have enough time
like,
for that.
could we put it in an email or something just for those?
Yes, I
Yeah.
could certainly do that.
So we do have quite a few.
I have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been collecting.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
so you
Thank you.
know, there, over these years that we've been working on getting this going again, anytime someone brings up an issue that they would like to see addressed, we don't always have people to work on them. And we rarely have people willing to chair a group. But I hang on to all the information because someday we will. So I've got quite a list of issues that I've collected, and I'll send those out to our mailing list. So potential committees is what I call them. Yes, if there's, now that COVID is weakening, there's more interest in community once again, and people are coming forward, and thank goodness they are. All right, our next meeting is going to be Thursday, March 16th at 7 o'clock on Zoom or at the Land Trust yet again. And I look forward to seeing everybody there. Bring your friends, and we'll continue on learning all about our community and how we can help it. So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Adjourn, second. All those in favor? Good night. Bye. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Diane.
Members of the.
Well, yeah, we weren't. They weren't.
Oh, okay.